Sport needs a pantomime villain. It's all part of the grand spectacle, and some relish the role. Snooker had Peter Ebdon, darts had Peter Manley, tennis had John McEnroe, Formula 1 had Michael Schumacher, and even the Gladiators had Wolf. Well, that's Jet. Nobody hated Jet, she was lovely. Oh, that's Zodiac in the middle there. And that's Saracen. Oh, sorry. Some people despise silent assassins like Steve Davis, until he stopped winning when suddenly he became popular. That's the British mentality for you. And some turn their hatred towards actual scumbags like Ted Hankey and Joey Barton. But if there's one thing the British public hates, one thing that absolutely grinds their gears, one thing that unifies us all in a chorus of "oh shitting hell, not them again," it's a consistent winner. Throughout the 90s, Manchester United were the most hated club in English football, and for some, particularly those who can't accept that the 90s was 30 years ago, they still are. In the early 2000s, with the rise of Chelsea and Arsenal, hatred towards Man United started to cool down as their dominance began to wane. By 2004, the footballing community had found another target. Whether or not they deserved it is a matter for debate. We are here in Milton Keynes, England's city of the future. In the glow of the post-war era, when England's population was expanding and immigration was growing, larger cities were becoming overcrowded. To address this, the government at the time decided to build several new towns, conveniently situated between large cities. Roughly equidistant from London, Birmingham and Leicester was a patch of land with nothing except a few tiny villages and the odd farm. In 1967, this was designated as the site of a new town, and Milton Keynes was born. The villages were levelled, the farms were purchased, and in their place stood a vast slather of concrete and glass. Milton Keynes is not a popular city. Finding a hotel room in the centre of town at a good price was hardly a challenge. Try doing that in Lincoln, York or Bath. But let's see what's here. If you want a fuller picture of this city, I highly recommend this video on the Digitizer channel. Viewers from overseas might recognise this place. The movie Superman 4 was filmed on an extremely low budget, and the scene of Superman gatecrashing the UN headquarters was in fact shot right here. It's actually the railway station. There's nothing here to commemorate the occasion, and if you've ever seen that movie, oh, you'll know why. In the movie, Lex Luthor steals Superman's hair to create a supervillain based on his DNA, which is incredibly ironic given what happened here about 16 years later. But you can see why they chose Milton Keynes. The city was designed on American principles, all grids, numbered streets and wide boulevards, making navigation easier than most English cities. Like many American cities, most of the actual attractions, the big shopping districts, the parks, and of course the football ground, are outside the city centre, which is purely a place for sleeping, working and grocery shopping. It is what we call a 15-minute city. Everything you need for the bare necessities is within a 15-minute walk. If you go for a stroll around Milton Keynes, you'll be struck by the lack of traffic. This gives it an eerie ghost town feel, especially on a Saturday afternoon when every other city centre is thronged with people. It's certainly unique. But it's certainly not ugly. There's no history here, no cobbled streets, no quaint old church, no decades-old charity shops smelling faintly of stewed cabbage. But it is pleasant. Honestly, I had preconceived notion of Milton Keynes as a sort of dismal, proto-Soviet concrete dystopia, but it's actually quite nice. I was really surprised. Towards the eastern end of the city is the big park. I'd kill for views like this where I live. This looks like a wonderful place to hold a concert. Music fans may well be familiar with the enormous Milton Keynes Bowl, which has hosted world-famous acts from all over the world. Nowadays they tend to go to Stadium MK, which we'll be seeing in a few minutes. This is the light pyramid, which I'm assured is not an Illuminati symbol, even though it obviously is. This is all very nice, but the stadium itself is much closer to the small town of Bletchley, which has a history all of its own, so let's go there as well. You've probably heard of Bletchley Park, where teams of scientists and mathematicians broke the Enigma codes, enabling the Allied forces to gain crucial advantages during the Second World War. If you haven't seen the 2014 movie The Imitation Game, starring Keira Knightley and banjoist Cul-de-sac, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful place to spend an afternoon, and it cost me 28 bloody quid to get in, so you are going to enjoy this with me. I mean, skip ahead to the game if you want, I don't care, but I'm staying here and getting my money's worth. Right, that's my money's worth. It's an early kickoff today, so let's get to the game and meet the teams, and find out why one of them is so despised. Wimbledon FC was formed in 1889 and spent many years in non-league, before a meteoric rise in the 70s and 80s saw them lifting the FA Cup in 88. For many years, the club occupied the bottom half of the Premier League and gained a cult following, with bruisers like Dennis Wise and Vinnie Jones squeezing other players' testes all over the country. Wimbledon were seen as the punk rockers of football and even gained their nickname, the Crazy Gang. Towards the end of the 90s, things began to fall apart. The club was essentially homeless, sharing a ground with Crystal Palace, and in 2000, Wimbledon were relegated. No longer cool or edgy, Wimbledon's fan base began to dwindle. London's football scene reflects the city itself, with a sharp divide between the haves and the have-nots. After 20 or so years in the former category, Wimbledon were in danger of slipping into the latter, and a solution was needed. The solution they came up with was one of the most controversial decisions in English football. There are several options available to the ailing football club. Changing the manager rarely works if the club is in terminal decline, ask Tottenham Hotspur fans. Major investment is a huge risk, and especially tricky if you don't even have a ground to call your own. But what about moving the whole kit and caboodle to another city? Especially a city that doesn't really have a football team. The idea was less than popular. From a business point of view, it made perfect sense. Why stagnate in a city already stuffed to the gills with football teams when you can start again in a growing city with no established team at all? In any other business, this would be a no-brainer. Several locations were considered, even Dublin was thrown into the mix, but the board eventually decided on Milton Keynes. But you can't take the club away from the fans, no matter how bad things have become. There's simply no excuse. Wimbledon's fans understandably didn't appreciate the heart and soul being ripped out of their club, and faced with a 120-mile round trip for a home game, Don's supporters decided to start an entirely new club rather than support this new abomination, and AFC Wimbledon was born. In 2004, it finally happened. The club moved into the National Hockey Stadium, their current home was constructed later, changed their name and badge, took Wimbledon's place in the Football League, the EFL bizarrely agreeing that they could do this, and to the delight of just about everyone, continued their decline. They quickly fell into the fourth tier, and they've become a sort of yo-yo club ever since. In fact, the revived AFC Wimbledon are currently playing in a higher division, which is definitely cosmic justice. You can't blame the fans, who are at least supporting their local team, but it's hard not to laugh when MK Dons are doing badly. But, I say through gritted teeth, they're not doing badly this season, and neither are their opponents. Bromley FC are definitely one of the have-nots of London. Until the late noughties, Bromley was an incredibly obscure non-league outfit that might occasionally rear its head in the early stages of the FA Cup, but generally kept a low profile. Based in South London, the club lives in the shadow of nearby Crystal Palace and Millwall. Other non-league clubs abound, some of which have spent some time in the Football League. Sutton, Carshalton, Dartford and Welling are all reasonably close. That's a lot of competitors, and until about 20 years ago it looked for all the world as if Bromley would ply their trade in the lower reaches of non-league football indefinitely. Well, how wrong that was. By 2015 they were one step away from league football, and after several unsuccessful skirmishes with the playoffs and a very successful run in the FA Trophy, Bromley made it into League 2 in 2024. And they're not finished yet. League 2 has arguably been the most exciting of the 4 divisions this season. Bromley are currently top, and with Notts County and Cambridge playing each other later today, a win would just about wrap up the title. MK Dons are second, and a win for them would almost seal promotion. There's a large chasing pack from 3rd to 6th, and they're so tightly bunched that I could be here all day going through all the permutations. So it's first versus second with a chance of a historic promotion for the visitors, and quite understandably the Sky cameras are here broadcasting live to the nation. This game is kicking off at 12:30, so we won't know if Bromley are promoted until several hours after the game is finished. So as the teams come out for this very important fixture, let's look at the lineups. MK Dons make 2 changes to the side that drew at Oldham on Easter Monday. Mendes Lang and Mellish come in for Collins and Nemain, who are both on the bench. Top scorer number 13 Patterson has 14 goals this season. Bromley's top scorer Michael Cheek has been out of action for some weeks, but that doesn't seem to have slowed them down. Number 14 Kabamba has been another regular scorer. They won 2-1 at Shrewsbury 5 days ago, and their starting 11 remains unchanged. There is a change on the bench, where Thompson comes in for Dinanga. So it's Bromley to kick off, and they've clearly been watching the old Six Nations because they boot it straight into touch. They've clearly decided that territory is better than possession. Let's see how that works out for them. Yep, 40 seconds in, and Mendes Lang makes it 1-0 to MK Dons. So this time Bromley should just do a normal kick-off, back to keeper, pass it around a bit, get rid of the old nerves, settle into the game. Nope, they do the exact same thing again. The first half was a bit painful for Bromley, one might even say embarrassing. They were pretty awful. They have been very dangerous from set pieces this season, but as their player lies on the ground, they don't look overly confident. And indeed the free kick results in nothing but another injury. And that was the pattern of the first half. Sporadic moments of action, mostly towards the Bromley goal, and lots of injuries. MK Dons should have made it 2. And a few minutes later, they did. Ben Wiles is all alone in the 6-yard box. Bromley restart the game in the correct way this time. The kickoff isn't rocket science, you pass it to a teammate unless the goalkeeper is about 50 yards off his line. 2-0 does not flatter MK Dons in the slightest. In fact, as the second half progresses, they could and probably should have had more. But the injuries kill the momentum. There are 8 minutes of stoppages before the referee finally blows for half time. Bromley's nightmarish first half was underlined by the fact that they made 4 substitutions at the start of the second. And now Bromley are finally going to show us why they're top of the league. But not before MK Dons make a hash of the kickoff. Guys, it's a kickoff. It's the easiest thing in the game. Just pass it to a player. Jesus wept. Anyway, Bromley launch attack after attack. Their set pieces are getting sharper and their midfield, particularly number 26 Ifield and number 7 Crowhouse, are finally starting to impose themselves on the game. But the match begins to lose its spark. And as you and I know, there's one thing guaranteed to bring it back to life. Yep, on 66 minutes, a nice little punch-up develops. I think every game should have one. A couple of cards are dished out, most importantly to MK Dons' John Mellish, who gets a second yellow. Naughty boy, he's off. So now MK Dons become even more nervous and Bromley have got to go for the jugular. And they do. On 73 minutes, a set piece is cleared as far as Marcus Eiffel. Eiffel was once on Brighton's books, and some regarded him as a player to watch in the future. Based on his second half performance today, he still is. Bromley used their one-man advantage to the maximum and continued to push for an equaliser. Now I hate simulation in diving. It's the work of the devil, I tells ye. But if you're going to try it, at least make sure there's another player within 3 yards of you. I think Crowhouse forgot that bit. MK Dons keeper McGillivray, I think that's how you pronounce it, pulled out some great saves. Here he denies Bromley their deserved equaliser. Bromley's resurgence was too little, too late, and with time running out, MK Dons keep the ball in the corner. And that's it. After the 3 PM kickoffs were finished, Bromley remains 7 points clear with 3 games to go, so they're practically home and hosed. A win and a couple of draws will do it for MK Dons. But it's the home side who are happy today. Well, that's all for today. Milton Keynes is a much nicer city than it gets credit for, and with London, Cambridge, Oxford, the Chilterns and Luton Airport all within a short drive, there's plenty to do if you get bored. Not bad. It's kind of fashionable to hate on the new boy, and you won't find many people willing to stand up for MK, but it's okay with me. I'm sorry. Goodbye.